No one in the galaxy noticed the moment Earth was marked for death. The Galactic Union had watched the blue planet for centuries. Humans were loud, divided, and always fighting each other. They had no unified fleet, no galactic colonies, no real power beyond their own system. In the great archives of the Union, humanity was ranked low, barely worth observation. So when the Cracks Dominion chose Earth as its next target, there was no debate. The Cracks were ancient, disciplined, and ruthless. They consumed worlds not out of hatred, but efficiency. Earth was rich in water, metals, and biology. The decision was simple. A single line was added to the galactic registry. Status: pending conquest. Far beyond human telescopes, Cracks war fleets moved through folded space. Millions of ships. Perfect formation. Perfect confidence. They expected chaos. They expected fear. They expected humans to scream into the void. Instead, Earth went quiet. As the Cracks crossed the edge of the solar system, their sensors showed something strange. No emergency broadcasts. No planetary defense activation. No global panic signals. Human satellites shifted position, not to attack, but to observe. Civilian traffic vanished from public channels. Power grids dimmed in patterns that made no sense. The Cracks commanders laughed. Prey behavior, one of them said. They hide. They freeze. They wait to die. The invasion fleet advanced. Mars fell first. There were no shots fired. Human installations were empty. Doors open. Data cores burned clean. Not abandoned in panic, but erased with care. Then came the asteroid belt. The Cracks expected mines. Traps. Resistance. There was nothing. Just drifting rocks and silence. At Jupiter's orbit, a Crack scout ship detected a single human probe. Old. Primitive. Barely functional. It drifted directly into the fleet's path, its power almost gone. The Cracks captain ordered it captured. The probe activated one final transmission. It was not a threat. It was not a plea. It was calm. Almost tired. This system is under quarantine. The message repeated once. Then the probe shut down forever. The bridge erupted in laughter. Quarantine, the Cracks admiral said. From what? They destroyed the probe and continued forward. As the fleet closed in on Earth, the galaxy finally paid attention. Observers tuned in, expecting live footage of humanity's end. What they saw was unsettling. Earth's cities were dark. Not destroyed. Not burning. Empty. Entire continents showed no heat signatures. Oceans were quiet. Skies were clear. Military bases were sealed from the inside. Space elevators stood unused. Humanity had not gathered to defend their world. They had left it behind. The Cracks began orbital strikes anyway. Precision attacks. Limited force. They wanted the planet intact. There was no response. No counterattack. No surrender signal. Just one final human broadcast, sent on an open galactic channel. It did not come from a government. It did not come from a general. It came from a simple automated relay near the moon. Evacuation complete. That was all. The message ended, and the relay self-destructed. For the first time in centuries, a Cracks admiral felt something unfamiliar. Unease. Because wars always followed patterns. Fear. Resistance. Desperation. But this felt planned. As Cracks forces landed on Earth, they found no bodies. No last stands. No desperate civilians. Just empty homes, preserved infrastructure, and carefully sealed vaults they could not open. It was as if humanity had stepped off the stage and locked the door behind them. Far beyond the solar system, deep in the dark between stars, ancient human systems began to wake up. They had waited for this moment for generations. And as the Cracks planted their banner on a silent Earth, the galaxy unknowingly crossed a line humanity had drawn long ago. A line that once crossed could never be uncrossed. The Cracks Dominion declared victory over Earth within 48 standard hours. From the outside, it looked clean, efficient, almost peaceful. Orbital command stations were secured. Human satellites were dismantled or repurposed. Atmospheric weapons platforms, few and outdated, were neutralized without resistance. Cracks banners were planted above major population centers that no longer had populations. To the rest of the galaxy, it appeared to be another example of Cracks' superiority. But inside the Cracks command structure, doubt was spreading. Because nothing about this conquest felt right. On Earth's surface, Cracks ground forces advanced through cities that looked frozen in time. Streets were clear. Vehicles sat parked, powered down, and orderly. Homes were intact. Personal items were left behind, placed neatly, as if people had stepped away for a moment and never returned. There were no signs of panic. No barricades. No mass graves. No emergency shelters filled with bodies. Humanity had not fled in fear. They had evacuated with precision. Cracks analysts moved through human data networks, trying to extract useful information. Every major system had been wiped. Not corrupted. Not damaged. Erased. The remaining files were old. Outdated. Useless. It was as if humanity had decided, years in advance, exactly what the invaders would be allowed to learn. This planet should be screaming, one Cracks intelligence officer said. Instead, it feels prepared. The Cracks admiral dismissed the concern. The humans ran. That is all. Weak species often do. But even as he spoke, reports continued to arrive. Human military facilities were empty, yet fully stocked. Weapons untouched. Ammunition sealed. Power systems still running. No scorch marks. No defensive lines. No final battles. The Cracks had trained their entire culture around war. They understood resistance. They respected it. This was something else. In orbit, Cracks engineers attempted to access Earth's deep space communication arrays. They found them locked behind encryption far beyond human-level computing, or so the Union had once believed. Every attempt to break the codes triggered self-destruct sequences. Human systems were not trying to defend themselves. They were denying access. Across the solar system, similar patterns appeared. On the moon, underground facilities collapsed inward the moment Cracks troops approached restricted zones. Not explosions, controlled implosions, sealing tunnels permanently. On Mars, terraforming stations vented their atmospheres and shut down, rendering the planet temporarily useless. In the asteroid belt, Cracks mining ships finally found something unexpected. Human beacons. Thousands of them. Old, simple transmitters embedded in rock, metal, and ice. They activated only after the invasion fleet had passed. Each one sent the same message, in hundreds of alien languages. You are being observed. The Cracks commanders ordered the beacons destroyed. More activated. They were everywhere. Watching. Still, no human ships appeared. No counterattack came. The galaxy breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Humanity was gone. The Cracks had won without effort. The balance of power remained unchanged. The Galactic Union officially updated its records. Species, human status, functionally extinct. The entry was archived. That was when the first Cracks ship vanished. It was a patrol vessel assigned to the outer edge of the solar system. Routine duty. Nothing remarkable. Its last transmission reported a sensor anomaly, brief, undefined, and impossible to classify. Then silence. No debris. No energy spike. No escape pods. The ship simply stopped existing. Cracks command blamed malfunction. Then a second ship vanished. Then a third. Each time, there was no warning. No battle. No trace. Long-range sensors detected momentary distortions in space itself, as if reality had folded inward for a fraction of a second. Human technology, according to every known record, was not capable of this. The Cracks admiral ordered a system-wide scan. What the sensors found chilled even the most hardened warriors. Human vessels. Not near Earth. Not near Mars. But scattered across deep space, far beyond what humanity should have been able to reach. They were dark, cold, silent, hidden inside radiation clouds, nebulae, and gravitational shadows. Some were old. Some were new. Some were so massive that Cracks computers struggled to calculate their full size. These were not evacuation ships. They were war platforms. The realization spread slowly, like poison. Humanity had not escaped the invasion. They had dispersed. Across the galaxy, Cracks supply lines began to fail. Cargo convoys went missing. Communication relays went dark. Entire listening posts stopped responding. Still, no human message followed. No declaration of war. No demand. Just disappearance after disappearance. The Cracks Dominion began mobilizing additional fleets, pulling forces back toward their core worlds. That was when the first strike came. A Cracks battle group near a distant binary star system detected an object approaching at sublight speed. It was small, human-sized, barely armed, according to scans. They did not fire immediately. That hesitation lasted less than a second. The object released a pulse. Not energy. Not radiation. Information. Every crack system linked to the fleet, navigation, targeting, life support, received the same data packet at the same time. A human symbol. Ancient. Simple. A circle. A line through the center. Then the fleet was gone. Not destroyed. Removed. Sensors showed empty space where millions of tons of warships had been moments before. The shockwave was felt across several systems. The galaxy panicked. Emergency sessions were called. Observers demanded answers from the cracks. Smaller species began retreating their fleets, fortifying borders. The cracks' dominion, once unchallenged, was suddenly silent. Finally, a human transmission arrived. It did not target the cracks alone. It was broadcast on every known frequency, in every known language. The voice was calm, human, measured. "This is a notice," it said, "not a threat. We did not defend Earth because Earth was never the battlefield. We prepared for this moment long before you discovered fire. We are not coming for revenge." There was a pause. "We are coming for balance." The message ended. Across the stars, ancient human systems fully awakened. Weapons the galaxy did not know existed aligned themselves with precision. And on Earth, silent, empty, untouched, the cracks' banners still flew. For now, because humanity had not returned yet. And that was the most terrifying part. The galaxy no longer spoke of victory. After the human transmission, silence spread faster than fear. Trade lanes emptied. Border patrols doubled. Ancient powers that had not mobilized fleets in centuries quietly began to do so. And the cracks' dominion, once loud, proud, and unstoppable, said nothing at all. Inside the occupied solar system, cracks' forces remained on Earth, but their confidence was gone. They controlled the planet, yet it felt like standing in a graveyard. Human cities remained untouched by war. Weather systems still functioned. Automated maintenance drones repaired roads, bridges, and power grids with quiet efficiency. Forests grew. Oceans stayed clean. Earth was alive, just not with humans. Cracks commanders argued over what to do next. Some demanded total planetary stripping, take resources, and leave. Others warned that destroying Earth might trigger retaliation they could not survive. Because now everyone understood one thing. Humanity had planned this. Deep beneath Earth's crust, cracks drilling operations attempted to reach what scanners labeled as anomalous voids. Every attempt failed. Tunnels collapsed. Machines shut down. Sometimes crews vanished without trace, leaving behind sealed rock as smooth as glass. It was as if the planet itself refused them. On the moon, crack scientists discovered something worse. An archive. Hidden in a crater's shadow was a human data vault that had not self-destructed. It was old, decades old, perhaps intentionally overlooked. When the cracks finally cracked it open, they expected military secrets. Instead, they found history. Human wars. Human extinctions narrowly avoided. Human simulations of alien invasion scenarios, thousands of them. In every simulation, Earth fell. And in every simulation, humanity survived. Not on one world, not in one fleet, but everywhere. Human strategy did not focus on defending territory. It focused on preserving the species. One line appeared again and again in the archived documents. A single planet is a weakness. The crack scientists reported their findings to high command. The response was immediate and absolute. Seal the archive. Classify all data. Destroy the moon facility. They were too late. The Galactic Union had already intercepted fragments. Across Union space, analysts studied the human records with growing horror. Humanity had predicted not just the cracks, but dozens of possible empires, including some that had not even risen yet. They had mapped galactic politics centuries in advance, and they had built contingencies for all of it. Meanwhile, the disappearances continued. Not just crack ships now. Pirate fleets vanished. Smuggler stations went dark. Even a Union reconnaissance vessel failed to return from a routine patrol near an unimportant star system. Humanity was not targeting only their enemy. They were reshaping the battlefield. Across deep space, human constructs activated, structures so dark and cold they blended into the background radiation of the universe. Some were shipyards. Some were weapon arrays. Some were things no one could classify at all. They had been placed far from Earth, far from each other, and far from attention. Each one came online silently. No broadcasts, no signals, just readiness. On a distant cracks outpost, A junior officer noticed something strange. Star charts were changing, not physically, but digitally. Navigation markers were subtly shifting. Hyperlane data was updating without authorization. Humanity was rewriting space itself. The officer reported it. Hours later, the outpost ceased to exist. Not destroyed. Gone. The Crack's dominion finally broke its silence. An emergency transmission was sent to the Galactic Union. It was the first time the Cracks had ever asked for help. "We request immediate mediation," the message said. Humanity must be contained. The Union Council chamber erupted into chaos. Containment? No one even knew where humanity was. Worse, long-range scans suggested they were everywhere. Union historians spoke up. Quiet voices, long ignored. They reminded the Council of an old human phrase, recovered from pre-space flight records. If you want peace, prepare for war. Humanity had done that. For centuries, the Council attempted to contact the humans. Days passed, then weeks. Finally, a reply arrived. It did not come from a capital world. It did not come from a flagship. It came from a small human vessel drifting near a red dwarf star. The ship allowed itself to be scanned. It was unarmed. Inside was a single human representative. Not a soldier. Not a politician. A historian. She spoke calmly to the assembled alien delegates. "You misunderstand us," she said. "We are not expanding. We are correcting." The Council demanded answers. Why the disappearances? Why the fear? Why the silence? The historian did not deny any of it. "You attacked Earth," she said. "That triggered our final protocol." She explained that humanity had accepted a truth long ago. They were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They were not the most advanced. But they were the most persistent. They assumed they would lose their homeworld someday. So they removed its importance. Earth was culture. Earth was memory. Earth was symbol. But survival? That belonged to the stars. The historian revealed something that stunned the Council into silence. Humanity had deliberately limited its visible technology. Everything the galaxy thought it knew about human weapons, ships, and AI was outdated by centuries. What they used publicly was restraint. What they hid was extinction insurance. The Council asked the question everyone feared. "What do you want?" The historian paused. "Nothing," she said. "We want nothing." That answer was worse than any demand. She continued. "We are not conquering the galaxy. We are not punishing it. But we will ensure one thing." She looked directly into the recording device. "No species will ever believe attacking Earth is survivable." The transmission ended. Back on Earth, Crack's troops began reporting something new. Human machines were reactivating. Not weapons. Sensors. Deep. Planet-wide. Watching everything. And for the first time since the invasion, a human ship appeared in Earth orbit. It did not fire. It did not speak. It simply stayed there, waiting. The Crack's commanders understood then. Humanity was not rushing. They were patient. They had already won. And whatever came next would not be a battle for territory, but a lesson written across the galaxy. The human ship remained in Earth orbit for 3 full days. It did nothing. No weapons charged. No engines flared. No transmissions were sent. It simply existed, dark against the stars, perfectly still. For the Crack's occupation forces, that was worse than any attack. Sensors could not lock onto it properly. Its mass readings shifted slightly every hour, as if the ship refused to be fully measured. Attempts to scan its interior returned incomplete data, distorted by layers of unknown interference. The Crack's admiral ordered fighter patrols to approach. The fighters never came back. Not destroyed. Not damaged. They vanished the moment they crossed a certain distance. After that, no Crack's vessel moved closer. On the surface of Earth, something changed. Human infrastructure that had remained dormant since the invasion began to activate, but not in ways the Cracks expected. Traffic lights turned on in empty cities. Power flowed through abandoned grids. Old satellites adjusted orbit on their own. Earth was waking up, not to fight, to watch. Cracks commanders realized, too late, that they were no longer the ones observing the planet. They were the subjects. Across occupied zones, Cracks troops began experiencing small, unsettling events. Navigation systems displayed human calendar dates instead of Cracks time. Environmental controls adjusted themselves to human comfort standards. Automated doors opened and closed without commands. Nothing harmful, nothing aggressive, just constant reminders. This is not your world. Panic spread through the lower ranks. Veterans who had crushed dozens of civilizations now struggled to sleep. The silence pressed on them. No resistance meant no enemy to defeat. No enemy meant no end. Above Earth, the single human ship was joined by another. Then another. They appeared without warning, slipping into orbit as if they had always been there. Still no weapons fire. Still no communication. The Galactic Union watched in growing dread. Long-range sensors now confirmed what many had feared. Human fleets were not gathering in one place. They were positioning themselves near critical galactic infrastructure, hyperlane junctions, energy nexuses, ancient relic systems. Not to occupy, to control access. Trade across the galaxy slowed, then stalled. Worlds dependent on off-system resources felt shortages within weeks. Governments panicked. Blame spread. And always, behind every disruption, there was the same pattern. Human precision. Human restraint. The Crax Dominion finally attempted negotiation. A high-ranking Crax diplomat was sent to Earth orbit under a flag of truce. His vessel approached slowly, broadcasting peaceful intent on every channel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space folded. The diplomat's ship was relocated, not destroyed, not damaged, but moved instantly to a fixed position directly between the growing human fleet and Earth. The human ships rotated as one. The diplomat understood. He was not here to negotiate terms. He was here to receive judgment. A single human transmission opened, directed only to his vessel. No anger, no threats, just information. The human voice spoke. You are standing on protected ground. The diplomat demanded to speak of treaties, reparations, compromise. The human voice did not respond to any of it. Instead, it showed him something. His ship's screens filled with images, records of extinct species. Civilizations erased by conquest. Worlds stripped, burned, forgotten. Some by the Crax, some by others. You are not unique, the voice said. You are not exceptional. Then the images changed. Human simulations. Millions of them. Scenarios branching endlessly. Outcomes calculated across centuries. In every one, a single constant appeared. Humanity endured. Earth was never our weakness, the voice continued. Your mistake was believing we would cling to it. The diplomat tried to speak. Space folded again. His ship was returned, intact, to Crax space. The message was clear. You have been measured. You have been found lacking. Shortly after, the first real human strike began. It was not an attack on a fleet. It was an attack on an idea. The Crax Dominion's Central Command Network, an ancient system believed unbreakable, failed across all sectors at once. No explosion. No hacking trace. Commands simply stopped reaching their destinations. Fleets sat idle, waiting for orders that never came. At the same time, human messages appeared on open channels across the galaxy. Not speeches. Not propaganda. Historical records. Proof. Evidence of how the Crax had quietly violated Union law for centuries. How they had erased minor species without reporting it. How they had manipulated trade routes, starved rivals, and rewritten history. Humanity released everything. Unedited. Unfiltered. The galaxy turned on the Crax overnight. Alliances dissolved. Neutral systems closed borders. Former client species rebelled. The Crax Dominion had ruled through fear. Humanity destroyed them with memory. On Earth, Crax occupation forces received a final notification on every device. Evacuation window, 72 hours. No threats followed. No explanation. Some Crax commanders argued it was a trap. Others understood. They had been given mercy, not because they deserved it, but because humanity wanted witnesses. As Crax ships began withdrawing from Earth, human fleets made no move to stop them. Corridors were left open. Paths were clear. The evacuation was clean, orderly, silent. When the last Crax vessel left the solar system, the human ships remained. For the first time since the invasion, a human signal was broadcast to the entire galaxy. It was short. This lesson is complete, the message said. But it is not the last. The Galactic Union demanded clarification. They did not receive it. Instead, human fleets began to reposition again, subtly, deliberately. This time around Union space. Not encircling, reminding. On Earth, human return vessels began arriving. Small at first. Scientists. Engineers. Caretakers. Not soldiers. Cities slowly lit up again. Human voices returned to streets that had never been destroyed. Earth had been reclaimed without a single battle fought on its surface. That fact unsettled the galaxy more than any war. Because now everyone understood the truth. Humanity did not fight to win battles. They fought to redefine the rules. And somewhere, deep in uncharted space, systems even the humans had kept dormant began to stir. Because the lesson of Earth had been observed. By species older than the cracks. By powers that had ruled silently for millennia. And they were beginning to ask themselves a dangerous question. If humanity could do this, what else had they prepared for? The galaxy had rules long before humanity learned to walk upright. They were not written laws. They were understandings. Borders shifted. Empires rose and fell. Species erased one another quietly, efficiently, and without witnesses. The Galactic Union existed not to stop conquest, but to manage it. And above the Union, beyond charts and public knowledge, there were the Elder Powers. They did not rule openly. They did not wage wars. They waited. For thousands of years, the Elders had watched younger civilizations burn themselves out. Aggression led to collapse. Expansion led to overreach. Every species followed the same path. Humans were supposed to be no different. Until Earth fell, and nothing followed the pattern. When the cracks withdrew from Earth without a single major engagement, the Elders noticed. When human fleets appeared across key galactic systems without claiming territory, the Elders paid attention. When trade routes collapsed not from destruction, but from permission being withdrawn, the Elders became uneasy. Because control without conquest was not supposed to be possible. In the silent halls of an ancient structure orbiting a dead star, the Elders convened for the first time in centuries. They reviewed the data. Human fleet movements. Human restraint. Human timing. One truth became clear very quickly. Humanity was not reacting. They were executing. Long before the Cracks invasion, human long-range observers had detected Elder-level technologies. They had mapped influence zones. They had identified where power truly rested. And they had built plans that did not threaten the Elders directly. Instead, they challenged the system the Elders depended on. Predictability. Across the galaxy, subtle changes continued. Hyperlane access required new routing protocols. Navigation AI demanded updates only human systems seemed able to provide. Ancient relay stations, older than most empires, suddenly required human-compatible encryption to function at full capacity. No one could prove humanity had caused this. But everyone knew. The Galactic Union tried diplomacy again. This time, they sent a delegation directly to Earth. The human representatives received them openly. No traps. No intimidation. Just a restored city overlooking a living ocean. The Union delegates expected arrogance. They found exhaustion. Human leaders did not speak of victory. They did not demand apology. They spoke instead of cost. Of generations spent preparing for a future they hoped would never come. One delegate asked the question no one else dared. What happens now? The human response was simple. Now, they said, we make sure this never happens again. The Union asked how. The humans did not answer directly. Instead, they showed them something. A human archive, not weapons, not fleet numbers, but psychological models. Studies of conquest behavior across hundreds of species. Patterns of escalation. Triggers that led empires to attack weaker worlds. And at the center of it all, a single conclusion. Fear deters briefly. Memory deters forever. Humanity was not trying to terrify the galaxy. They were teaching it. Elsewhere, far from Earth, the Cracks' dominion was collapsing. Without centralized command, without allies, without secrecy, their empire fractured. Former subject species rebelled. Supply lines failed permanently. Worlds declared independence overnight. Humanity did not intervene. They did not need to. The Cracks had been exposed, not as monsters, but as predictable. And predictable powers do not survive long. Then came the event that changed everything. An Elder listening post vanished. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Gone. This was unprecedented. Elder structures were layered with defenses beyond modern understanding. They were not meant to be challenged. The Elders searched for signs of human involvement. There were none. No human ships. No signals. No energy signatures. Only absence. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Elders felt uncertainty. They began to study humanity more closely. That was their mistake. Human counter-observation systems activated immediately. The elders realized they were not just being watched. They were being anticipated. Humanity had mapped elder curiosity responses centuries earlier. They had predicted exactly how long it would take before the disappearance forced a reaction. And they had prepared an answer. A message appeared within elder data space, encoded in logic structures older than spoken language. It was unmistakably human. "We see you," it said. Not a threat, a statement of fact. The elders did not respond. They did something worse. They began mobilizing. Ancient constructs stirred in forgotten systems. Weapons older than stars powered up. Reality-bending technologies prepared for activation. The galaxy felt it immediately. Gravity fluctuations, time dilation events, stars behaving incorrectly. Panic spread. Species that had survived countless wars suddenly realized they were helpless. And then, humanity intervened. Not with fleets, with sacrifice. Across multiple systems, human installations overloaded deliberately. Massive energy releases stabilized space-time distortions caused by elder tech. Human stations burned themselves out to prevent damage to civilian worlds. Millions of humans died without the galaxy ever seeing their faces. The elders stopped. Because this was new. No species had ever chosen self-destruction to protect others, especially not strategically, not calmly, not at scale. The elders reevaluated. They understood then what humanity truly was. Not conquerors, not rebels, a counterweight, a species that assumed the universe was hostile and decided to become the thing that stopped it from collapsing into endless predation. The elders withdrew their mobilization. Quietly. No announcement was made. No apology offered. But the galaxy felt the shift. Humanity had not defeated the elders. They had constrained them. Back on Earth, memorials were built for the lost stations. Names etched. Stories preserved. No triumphal speeches. No celebrations. Just remembrance. A human child asked why they had died. The answer was recorded and later spread across the stars, so that no one else would have to. From that day forward, a new understanding spread through the galaxy. Earth was not protected by weapons alone. It was protected by reputation, by proof, by the knowledge that humanity would endure losses no conqueror could afford and would still keep fighting. The elders marked Earth on their oldest maps, not as forbidden, not as dangerous, but as essential, because in a universe built on exploitation, humanity had chosen a different role. And now, everyone understood something far more terrifying than human firepower. If humanity ever stopped holding back, there would be no balance left to protect anyone. The galaxy waited for the next disaster. After the elders withdrew and the Crack's dominion began to fracture, every major power assumed the same thing. Humanity would finish it. That was how wars always ended. One side collapsed. The other took control. But humanity did neither. And that confused everyone far more than violence ever could. Human fleets did not advance into Crack's core space. They did not occupy former Crack's worlds. They did not claim stations, shipyards, or resources left behind. Instead, they did something unexpected. They sealed doors. Across Crack's territory, hyperlane gates shut down, cleanly, precisely. Not destroyed, not damaged. Just locked. Access codes changed to formats only human navigation systems could interpret. Supply routes ended overnight. Not with explosions. With silence. Crack's worlds began to starve. Not because humans attacked them, but because the Dominion had been built on constant expansion and constant consumption. Without external flow, its core systems could not sustain themselves. Humanity had studied this. They had learned long ago that most empires were not defeated by enemies, but by their own structure. Inside Crack's space, panic turned to chaos. Regional governors declared independence. Fleet commanders ignored central orders that no longer came. Old rivalries reignited. Civil wars erupted across systems that had once been tightly controlled. Human ships watched from a distance. They did not intervene. They recorded everything. The Galactic Union pleaded with humanity to step in, to stabilize the region, to prevent collapse. Human representatives refused. We did not break them, they said. We removed the lie holding them together. The Union did not like that answer, but they could not argue with the results. Then the Cracks tried one final move. A surviving Cracks War Council, desperate and cornered, made a decision born of fear. They gathered what remained of their elite fleets, and prepared a retaliatory strike. Not on Earth, on human refuge systems, hidden colonies, civilian worlds, places humanity had evacuated to long ago. It was a gamble. If they could inflict enough damage, perhaps humanity would be forced into direct war. Perhaps the galaxy would intervene. Perhaps balance could be restored. The fleets launched in secret. They never reached their targets. As the Krax Armada entered a narrow hyperlane corridor, space itself changed. Not violently. Precisely. The corridor collapsed, not catastrophically, but selectively. Each Krax ship found itself isolated in a separate pocket of folded space. Communications failed. Navigation became meaningless. Then human ships appeared. One per pocket. Not fleets. Single vessels. Each one broadcast the same message. This action was predicted. The Krax commanders demanded terms. Threatened annihilation. Promised vengeance. The human response was identical every time. This is not punishment. Moments later, every Krax warship was neutralized. Not destroyed. Their weapons were removed from existence. Disassembled at a level below matter itself. Hulls remained intact. Crews survived. Stranded. Powerless. Alive to understand. Those ships were later returned to Krax space, drifting, disarmed, and marked. The mark was a human symbol now recognized across the galaxy. It meant incapable of war. The message spread fast. Humanity did not need to win battles. They could end the ability to fight. That was when the remaining Krax leadership surrendered. Unconditionally. Not to humanity. To the Galactic Union. The surrender ceremony was broadcast across known space. The Krax High Executor, once feared across hundreds of systems, stood before Union representatives and spoke words no one had ever expected to hear. "We misunderstood humanity," he said. "We believed strength meant domination. We were wrong." The Union accepted the surrender. Humanity did not attend. That absence spoke louder than any presence. In the aftermath, the Union began restructuring Krax territory. Borders were redrawn. Independent worlds were recognized. Former client species gained autonomy. And above it all, a new rule quietly took shape. Any system containing humans, Earth or otherwise, was now classified under a special designation, protected by deterrence memory. It was not a military status. It was a warning. Centuries later, Union scholars would argue about when the war ended. Some claimed it never truly began. Others said it ended the moment Earth was attacked. But everyone agreed on one thing. The decisive moment came when humanity chose not to take revenge. Because that choice forced the galaxy to confront something it had never faced before. A powerful species that did not want to rule, did not want tribute, did not want fear, only restraint. On Earth, reconstruction continued quietly. Human cities grew again, not larger, not more fortified, but more open. Memorials were placed where no battles had been fought. Children grew up hearing stories not of heroes who conquered, but of ancestors who planned, waited, and endured. A human commander was once asked why they did not destroy the Krax when they had the chance. His answer was recorded and archived. "Because destruction teaches nothing," he said. "Survival teaches everything." Far beyond Union space, in regions still uncharted, observers took note. Species that had hidden for millennia. Intelligences that measured time in star lifespans. Forces that had once shaped the galaxy and then stepped away. They all reached the same conclusion. Humanity was dangerous. Not because of what they did, but because of what they refused to do. They refused to become what the universe expected. And in doing so, they changed the expectations forever. The war humanity refused to name was over. The consequences were just beginning. The galaxy did not celebrate the end of the Krax dominion. There were no victory parades. No monuments carved from ruined enemy ships. No triumphant declarations of a new age. Instead, there was a quiet, uneasy pause. Empires had fallen before. That was not new. What terrified everyone was how this one ended. No final battle. No decisive strike. No moment where power changed hands in fire and blood. The Krax had simply stopped mattering. And humanity had made sure the galaxy noticed why. In the months following the surrender, the Galactic Union struggled to regain control of something it had never officially governed before: fear. Member species demanded answers. Trade coalitions demanded guarantees. Smaller civilizations demanded protection. And again, the same question was asked behind closed doors. What happens if humans decide we are next? That question forced the Union to do something it had avoided for centuries. They called a full assembly. Every recognized species was summoned. Even observers. Even rivals. Even those who rarely spoke. The chamber filled like it never had before. And at the center of it all sat an empty space, reserved for humanity. When the humans finally arrived, they did not come with fleets or displays of power. They arrived as individuals. Delegates. Scientists. Archivists. Strategists. No uniforms. No weapons. That alone unsettled the assembly. The Union chair opened the session with formal words, but the tension was thick. Everyone knew why they were there. The chair spoke the truth no one else wanted to say. The galaxy fears you. The human representative did not deny it. Yes, she said. We know. A murmur spread through the chamber. The chair continued. You dismantled the Crack's dominion without conquest. You constrained the elders without war. You reshaped trade, travel, and power without claiming authority. You have done what no species has done before. What do you intend to do next? The human representative paused, not for drama, but for care. Then she answered, nothing new. That answer confused the assembly. She explained, humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to police it. And we do not want to decide who deserves to exist. That path always ends the same way. She gestured around the chamber. You already know this. Some delegates bristled. Others looked away. The human continued. But we will enforce one boundary. The chamber went still. No species may attack Earth, she said. Not as conquest. Not as test. Not as warning. Not as mistake. Silence followed. Then outrage. Some delegates protested. Others demanded clarification. A few openly accused humanity of declaring supremacy. The human did not raise her voice. This is not supremacy, she said. It is survival. She reminded them of the archives humanity had already released, of the simulations, of the inevitability of aggression in a universe without consequence. Earth is not special because it is powerful, she said. It is special because it is home. If Earth can fall without consequence, then no world is safe. Not yours. Not mine. The assembly argued for days. Some feared humanity too much to agree. Others feared what would happen if they did not. Behind the scenes, something remarkable happened. No species voted against the proposal. Some abstained. Some hesitated. But none opposed it openly. The measure passed. Quietly. It was not called a law. It was called a principle. The Earth Principle. Any species that initiated hostile action against Earth would lose all protection under galactic norms. Trade access. Diplomatic recognition. Navigation rights. And if humanity responded, no one would interfere. The principle reshaped the galaxy overnight. Star charts were updated. Navigation AI included hard-coded warnings. Military academies taught Earth as a forbidden case study. And for the first time in known history, conquest planners had to consider something new. What if success meant extinction anyway? Humanity did not enforce the principle loudly. They did not need to. The memory of the cracks was enough. Years passed. Then decades. Earth recovered fully. Not as a fortress, but as a living world. Humans expanded again, but differently now. Slower. Careful. Transparent. They shared technology openly, but never weapons of final scale. That silence, the things humanity did not share, kept the galaxy cautious. Then came the test. A young, aggressive species on the galactic fringe rose quickly. Fast breeding. Rapid industrialization. Short memory. They saw Earth not as a warning, but as a myth. An exaggerated story told by older, weaker civilizations. They believed humanity had lost its edge. That restraint meant decay. They sent a probe into the Sol system. It crossed the boundary. The probe was not destroyed. It was returned. Intact. Along with a data package. The package contained only one thing. A full record of the Crack's dominion. Unfiltered. Complete. Ending with the final image of a disarmed fleet drifting helplessly. The young species withdrew immediately. They never spoke of Earth again. That moment confirmed what the Union already knew. The Earth Principle worked. Not because of force, but because of understanding. Humanity had achieved something no empire ever had. A reputation that made war pointless. Centuries later, children across the galaxy learned a simple phrase translated into thousands of languages. Do not touch Earth. Not because humans would destroy you, but because they would endure you. And endurance, the galaxy had learned, was far more dangerous. On a quiet day, long after the assembly, the same human representative returned to Earth. She stood near the ocean, watching waves crash against stone that had never surrendered. A colleague asked her if she thought the galaxy would ever truly trust humanity. She shook her head. "Trust is temporary," she said. "Memory lasts longer." Above Earth, satellites traced peaceful arcs. Far beyond, human observers continued their silent watch. Humanity did not relax. They never would, because the galaxy had finally understood the truth behind the warning. Any species that attacks Earth is doomed. Not by rage, not by conquest, but by a species that learned, very early on, that survival meant thinking further ahead than anyone else ever dared. And the galaxy would never forget that lesson. Long after the Earth principle was written into memory and navigation code, the galaxy changed in quieter ways. There were fewer wars, not because species became kinder, but because they became careful. Borders still shifted. Disputes still happened. Violence did not disappear. But one pattern ended forever. No fleet ever moved toward Earth. Not by accident. Not in secret. Not as a test. Even pirates altered their routes to avoid the Sol system by light years. Smugglers refused contracts that passed too close. Explorers logged the outer markers and turned away without complaint. Earth became a blank space on many maps. Not empty. Untouchable. To younger species, the fear felt exaggerated. Earth had no visible megastructures. No planet-cracking weapons on display. No fleets stationed openly at its borders. Just warnings. Old warnings. Stories. That made it worse. Because power that did not need to be shown was power that could not be measured. Galactic historians struggled to explain it. Military analysts failed to model it. Philosophers argued over it for centuries. In the end, they all reached the same conclusion. Earth was not protected by what humanity had. It was protected by what humanity had already proven it was willing to lose. That truth surfaced during the final Great Crisis. It began far from Earth, in a region thought empty. A force older than the Elders emerged. Not an empire, not a species, but a migrating intelligence that consumed star systems to fuel its movement. It did not negotiate. It did not hate. It moved. Worlds vanished. Civilizations fell without ever understanding what was happening. The Galactic Union fractured under the strain. Fleets failed. Weapons meant nothing. Panic returned to the stars. As the force advanced, its trajectory became clear. It would pass near Earth. Not to attack. Simply because Earth was in the way. Debate erupted immediately. Some argued Earth should be evacuated again. Others demanded humanity finally unleash everything it had hidden. A few, in secret, suggested redirecting the threat toward Earth, believing humanity would stop it and save everyone else. Human leadership listened, then refused all of it. They made no speeches, issued no dramatic declarations. They activated protocols older than the Earth principle itself. Across the galaxy, human systems that had never been used began to awaken. Not weapons, anchors, stabilizers, structures designed to interact with reality at a fundamental level. They were not meant to destroy the threat. They were meant to slow it. Humanity understood something the galaxy did not. Some dangers could not be beaten, only endured. As the migrating force approached inhabited space, humans intervened again, not at Earth, but far ahead of it. Entire human installations sacrificed themselves to alter its path slightly, gradually, over time. Each intervention cost lives. Each bought days, then weeks. Other species watched in disbelief. Humanity was bleeding, not to win, not to claim credit, but to protect worlds that had once feared them. When the force finally passed Earth's orbit, it did so at a safe distance. Earth never fired a shot. The galaxy survived. Afterward, the Union tried to honor humanity. Medals, titles, permanent authority. Humanity declined all of it. Instead, they released the full record of what they had done. The cost, the failures, the losses. They made sure the galaxy understood that Earth's safety had never been free. That restraint had a price, and that humanity paid it willingly. That revelation changed something fundamental. For the first time, the galaxy did not fear humanity. It respected them, not as rulers, as stewards. Centuries later, long after the crisis faded into history, a child from a distant species asked a question in a shared learning archive. Why does no one attack Earth? The answer recorded beneath it was simple, translated across thousands of languages. Because Earth is where the line is. Another answer followed, written by a human historian. Because when Earth was attacked once, the galaxy learned what humanity does when it believes there is no future. The final answer was added much later, by an anonymous Union archivist. Because Earth taught us that power does not need to be cruel to be final. Even now, humanity watches. Not aggressively, not nervously, patiently. They still prepare, still plan, still assume the universe may turn hostile again. They never forget. That is why Earth remains alive. Not armored by fear, not isolated by walls, but surrounded by memory. A memory shared by every species that looks toward the solar system and chooses, without debate, to look away. Because now they understand. Any species that attacks Earth is not fighting a planet. It is fighting a species that already survived the end of its world and decided the universe would not be allowed to repeat that mistake. And that is why Earth is never tested again.